So the time has finally come. There is a new format on the horizon for Flesh and Blood called Project Blue. Let's go ahead and take a look into what this is and how I personally feel as a budget player of Flesh and Blood in regards to its ban list that has already been made. Welcome on in, my Ashwings. It is such a pleasure to see you all here today in the fine world of Flesh and Blood. I, of course, am Alex, your host for today's episode, in which we are talking about none other than a new format that is due to come out for Flesh and Blood. Now, of course, I have to preface all of this by saying Project Blue is something that was brought up in an interview with James White. I believe it was with Flukenbox. And I can leave that description, in the description below. But you can also probably go find it by checking out Flukenbox channel. But on top of it, Project Blue was something that was brought up but not really clarified on. It wasn't until recently that we got a invitation of sorts, not we as in me specifically, but the entirety of the Flesh and Blood space, was informed of an invite for a Project Blue event that is occurring in New Zealand. This is kind of something that just kind of happened out of nowhere. There was a cool art for this Sink Below promo that's in existence, which is, again, another Sink Below promo is awesome. And I think this one looks, no offense, I think this one looks way cooler than the one from London. But with that Sink Below promo, this made it seem like it was a big event, right? It is something that LSS is hosting and hoping to get feedback on in this regard. But what exactly is Project Blue, and why am I, as a budget player, excited for something like this? So let's go ahead and start off with what Project Blue is. Project Blue is part of the Legend Story Labs creation. This is something that I was unaware of what this was, but Legend Story Labs is a Discord server that you can actually join. And in this Discord server, this is kind of where LSS, the company that makes Flesh and Blood, goes about kind of giving a little bit of detail into things that they're working on in regards to certain things. Currently, their project is Project Blue, and this is a way for all of us to communicate about these projects as a community towards their growth and development. Now, this is super cool, and I love a good format created by the community. Obviously, being a member of the Clash committee, I do enjoy being a part of building something greater within the game that I love. But at the end of the day, I don't, we're unsure exactly what feedback is going to be taken in regards to this format. Something that is important to note, though, is that currently the format is in its alpha stages. When it's in its alpha stages, it is only limited to be talked about, or not talked about, but there's no NDA on this. I can obviously talk about this, but there is no immediate testing outside of, official testing done for Project Blue outside of New Zealand. So anybody who is within the New Zealand space can go onto that Discord, inform, I believe, Aaron, LSS, and kind of talk about how to get involved in something like this. And in getting involved with it, you get an invite, you get access to the alpha channel where you get to learn about what they're trying to implement, what's working, what's not. And it's in this space to be able to actually show off what, developments can be made for the game and for the format more specifically. And the rest of the world will be invited into its beta stages, should you be a part of that Discord, can go ahead and be involved in its beta stages if it gets pushed to beta. There is no guarantee that Project Blue will ever be pushed to beta. There is no guarantee that Project Blue will ever be pushed into the fully functioning format within Flesh and Blood. But as far as what we know of the format, I'd certainly love to talk about it, because it is something that is near and dear to my heart as an individual who is a big player in the budget space. I love playing Commoner. I love playing Clash. I'm making a whole video on what I hope to be Brawl, our CC budget format that we're trying to make over at the Clash Committee. And so something like this really interests me because it shows me that LSS is willing to go ahead and start creating new formats, something that we know deep down. I know a lot of commoner players have said, gosh, I really wish there was just a format with rares and commons in it too, because it really allows for the identity of the hero to be better. It allows for a wider array of different play styles, because obviously adding rares is really, really good to the overall game. You have slightly more higher power cards, but you also get higher power defenses and so on and so forth. So how Project Blue works, just kind of go into the rundown here. Your hero can be much like any hero you can play in Commoner. Rare, common, or token rarity. Those are the only rarities your hero can be. So no Valda, no Emperor, no Shiana, no Genus, What You Need, none of that. Only things that you can play in, only heroes that you can play in Commoner, theoretically, can you play in Project Blue. And I guess we'll just call it Blue for short. Not sure. I also believe the reason they call it blue is because the rare symbol is blue, but we'll get to that later. So you can play only rare or lower rarity heroes. Your equipment can be rare or lower rarity, much like in Commoner, but you also have access to rare cards within your deck. So you can play rares and you can play commons. Now, this is not like Clash, where Clash you can have specializations and weapons of any rarity and mentors and things like that. Here, you're just getting the addition of rare cards into your main deck. The other cool thing about this format, believe it or not, and this is something that I know Dice Commando has spoken on over at his channel in regards to the sideboard not being large enough for you to be prepared into more heroes into the format. This is where I personally believe Project Blue shines, in that it gives you a 55 card deck instead of a 52 card deck. 52 cards is pretty tight when it comes to sideboarding, and you really have to make sure that, like, in some situations you need to be ready for poppers. In some situations you need to be ready for arcane. So those are really the two big things that you have to sideboard for, but there's no additional slots after that. Once you get poppers and an arcane suite into the sideboard, you have nothing left for your game plan. It's effectively just sit there and attempt to make something happen with what you have, and hope that you don't get blown out by some mechanic that happens later on down the road. So when that happens, it's harder to make those decisions on what goes into the sideboard, because you have to present 40 cards. You can't fat deck a deck. So you have to present 40 cards, and then the rest of your stuff is your equipment suite and then your sideboard. Theoretically, you have an equipment suite of 5 to 6 cards, which means that your sideboard is like maybe 6 cards, sometimes 7 cards, and that's not really a lot. But 55 cards allows you to add 3 new cards, or any 3 cards, any combination of 3 cards, whether it be another piece of Arcane Barrier and 2 poppers or whatever it might be. That allows you to make those changes into your deck and allow you to be more prepared for the overall format, no matter what you're going into. And that's really awesome. Now, what we get into next is what the ban list looks like. There is already a ban list set up for this format. I do not personally have the official document stating that it is the ban list, but we do have a ban list that was brought up when this was announced. It is something that was brought up on February, and so I wanted to take a quick look at it there and kind of show you what exactly is currently banned in the format. So let's take a quick look at what the format looks like from a ban's perspective now. All right, so here we are on the ban list for this format. And something I wanted to bring up is that obviously starting with Yorick, it's a funny thing. This kind of just goes to show that it is a ban list. It's an open list that's got a whole bunch of cards in it. But let's talk about the cards that are banned and why they might be banned in this format. So first, we have a lot of cards that you'll probably see banned from the ban list in Commoner. Cards such as Aether Ironweave, You also have Rosetta Thorn, Waning Moon, and Zephyr Needle banned. Stubby Hammers is banned. But some other additional equipment pieces that were banned are Goliath Gauntlet, Heart and Cross Trap, Mask of Three Tails, Ragamuffin's Hat, Snapdragon Scalers, and Vest of the First Fist. Now, these are very interesting bans. Goliath Gauntlet and Heart and Cross Trap, I believe Heart and Cross Trap is banned in Blitz. Obviously, this card is insane to be able to get the 2 power cost attack to play for free, or that 2 cost 6 power or 7 power attack to come in for free is really, really good. But again, here in this lower power format, you want to make it a little bit more fair. I've blown out some people in Clash by just having a good Heart and Cross Trap turn, so having it banned here makes sense in a 20 health format. Goliath Gauntlet also being banned is kind of interesting. This is a card that a lot of Guardians would utilize to be able to pump up a Thump and then send Thump at their opponent. No longer can they do that with the Goliath Gauntlet, so they're going to have to find some other arm piece to use. Mask of Three Tails getting a ban also seems pretty good because it is one of the 3 pieces of that the Kitty combo suite, the Tiger Crouching Tiger suite that came from the Ira deck. This one allowing you to draw another card if you have at least hit 3 times within your entire chain link. Now, do I think that Pouncing Paws should have been banned instead? Yes, if not addition to this. But Pouncing Paws getting a pass to this is fine. I'm not too worried exactly about the overall rate of Ninja, but allowing them to not have to draw a card. The fact this blocks 0 is the reason why I like it more than having the addition of Pouncing Paws, because Pouncing Paws blocks for 1, has Battle Worn, and then you can destroy it at any point to create a Crouching Tiger to turn on those Tiger mechanics. Whereas Mask of Three Tails, it doesn't block for anything, and it's really good to get you 1 card in the game, but sometimes that's not enough, and sometimes you don't draw a good card. So it is very interesting to see that banned. Ragamuffin's Hat being banned is also really crazy because Ragamuffin's Hat is not only good in Kano, obviously the wizard of the format, but also in Azalea, believe it or not. Azalea with a lower power needs more ways to look at that top card of her deck, or at least put an arrow on the top card of her deck so she knows she has it on there. Ragamuffin's Hat is a great way to go about doing that because you don't have access to things like Skullbone Cross Wrap to be able to see what's on top. So instead, you can just make those choices to put something on top and then go ahead and send off those arrows. Seeing Ragamuffin's Hat banned is very interesting because I don't know that it's exactly powerful. It's a great 1-turn setup. And I'm not sure what rare cards allow for Ragamuffins to be as powerful as it is in this format to be considered for a ban, but who's to say? Snapdragon Scalers being banned is also a wild thing here. So Snapdragon Scalers, bar none, is the best aggro foot piece in most cases for any hero in these younger formats, just because you get to give something like Snatch, go again. You get to give something with an on hit that's got 1 or less cost, a go again. So you're able to extend that chain even farther and really push towards the end of your game and give that additional amount of value back. So seeing Snapdragon Scalers banned here is very interesting because that's a pretty big like aggro piece into this. But I believe it makes sense as to why this was banned, strictly because of the bans that we will see below. Again, Stubby Hammers being banned makes sense. Vest of the First Fist being banned. This is also really nice. This is just Heart and Cross Trap, but you have to hit. So that's pretty good to have. You know, make sure that you're not just boosting a whole bunch of free resources, because even if these 2 resources, even for just 1 turn on a hero, noting that this is a generic piece of equipment, so any hero can run this. Even heroes like KO or Rhinar or Oldhim can run it if they really wanted to, if they're trying some weird like go wide, go tall strategy. That can be utilized in their deck too. But the fact that this is banned too, again, it's much like Heart and Cross Trap. So when you take a look at everything else here, these are the bans for the format so far. Now, of course, it's every version of these cards, but in every color, on top of some cards that only come in 1 color. So let's go ahead and go over them and talk about why cards are banned, at least like why I believe cards to be banned, and why I believe it makes sense that they are banned in a format such as this. Aether Flare being banned. Obviously, in 20 health format, if you have any inkling to be able to pump up damage on an Aether Flare and then kill your opponent with something, Aether Flare is really, really, really good. It's really good. And the fact that we're able to play it in Commoner is great, but seeing it banned here in Project Blue makes a lot more sense to me, just because there's higher power cards in rare value for Wizard. So being able to Aether Flare something and then pump up another thing that's got even more damage or a more incredible on hit, I do believe Aether Flare is certainly something to keep an eye out for. But obviously it's banned. I don't know that it will ever be unbanned, strictly because you're probably not going to be seeing too much Wizard happening. I believe that with the Waning Moon ban in a young hero format, I believe that Crucible of Aetherweave is like the only Wizard weapon that you'd want to play. And frankly, that just means that every other hero you'd loses on a lot of value. Kano probably being the best, but obviously Icelander not being a prevalent thing in here without Waning Moon, it's just a different kind of deck. Unless somebody out there has broken Crucible of Aetherweave Icelander, I know I have not, so I don't know if anybody will. Ball Lightning being banned. This makes sense if you're adding rares into the deck. They unbanned it in Commoner just recently, but they banned it here in Project Blue. And the reason being, at least to my own understanding, is that with Ball Lightning, it's just a really powerful card. Again, rares add a little bit more of a higher power level to a deck. And so adding that additional concept of being able to send Ball Lightning at such an insane rate is, it's a good thing it's banned. It does block for 0, so there is that downside, but I mean, we already have seen what Aurora is doing in the Classic Constructed format, so no reason to replicate that here. Belittle being banned makes sense. Again, it's banned in Commoner. It's banned in most formats just because it allows you to get free resources, essentially, and that's insanely good for aggro decks, so no reason for that to be there. Bonds of Ancestry being banned, good call, strictly because Zen is available in this format, and we all know what happened with Zen and Bonds of Ancestry, so that's a thing that we can not worry about. Every copy of Count Your Blessings is also banned. I think this is also a really good call. Prevents a lot of fatigue from happening, a lot of healing from occurring. It's just really, really nice to see that both of these kind of like problematic cards are banned. Now, Deadwood Dirge being banned is crazy. This is because obviously I'm sure Viserai is going to have a pretty fun time in a 20 health format with some rares and some commons. But even things like Vincent lose out a little bit on this because Deadwood Dirge just doesn't kill your stuff. You can't make those rune chants to be able to send your big gates and so on and so forth. You also don't get to play this in Chain, which is really good because that means that Chain does not get to destroy his own soul shackles in order for him to go to his next, to kind of prevent his own fatigue. But I do believe that Chain's probably still going to be a pretty big deck in the format, considering everything else here too. But of course, there are some bans that we're looking into later that might make him a little less powerful. Drone of Brutality being banned makes sense. Again, they want to kind of prevent a fatigue match in a 40 card deck. Drone of Brutality is just really good. It's banned in like nearly everything, so makes sense for them to ban it here. Electromagnetic Somersault being banned, insane. They have not even done this in CC, so it's insane to think that they did this already in Project Blue, but this card is really, really good. I mean, they've restricted it in Living Legend. They've not done anything with it in CC, and it allows you to just block for 6 and then get your cards back to your hand. It's a 0 for 6 D-React that's essentially what this is, a 0 for 6 D-React that you play at instant speed that gets around things like Command and Conquer. Card is insane. But it is good to know that they banned it. They also banned Fate Foreseen. So very powerful 0 for 4 D-React being banned. Kind of interesting to see this here, but of course it does stop a lot of these decks from just pumping in a whole bunch of D-Reacts. Flick Flack being banned is also another thing that's kind of wild, just strictly because Flick Flack is, if you're trying to play like a more mid-range ninja, Flick Flack is normally the way, but it is something that allowed Ira to be incredibly good in Commoner, or not in Commoner, in Clash, in regards to the ability just to like move over turns. If your opponent's going to come in for Zealous Belting, and then you can somebody can swing a big attack, and then you block with 5, and then 3 more, you block 8. It's kind of insane when it comes to its initial value, because it effectively blocks for 4. Most people are just running the reds, but sometimes it's the yellows that do that as well, because you can also do things like or the blues. I'm sorry. The blues are also nice just because it's another way to give another thing +2. You block for like 7 in total over the course of a chain link, but it's good to see it's banned. Plunder Run being banned makes sense. Again, this is kind of, draw a card is pretty rough in a 20 health format, just strictly because if you're able to go like 6-7 chain links wide, you're practically dead. There's no way that you're able to come back from that. Your entire turn is just going to be passed, and then it happens again and again. So Plunder Run being banned is good. Rake the Embers getting a ban. Now, as a Dromai fan, this is actually insanely good, actually. Just strictly because in these low power formats, like Rake the Embers is oppressive. I did some pretty nasty stuff with folks with just Rake the Embers alone. A lot of people were like, oh, Dromai is oppressive because these dragons are, these big, everybody would look at Dromai and go, these dragons, right? Asvali and Chromai and Miragai. These are the ones that are really causing a big problem. But it was the Ashwings. It's you guys, the Ashwings. That is what causes the game to tip. Because if I can make 6 Ashwings in the matter of a turn, if I just stack 2 of these, I make 6 Ashwings in a turn, this game is just rolled in my favor. And I mean, it's hard to spend 2 turns to clear an entire wave of Ashwings plus any other dragons I already have on the board. So seeing Rake the Embers go, pretty good. There are other ways to make Ashwings on the board, so it's not like you're without Ashwings, but you're certainly not able to make them in mass like you were previously. Rootbound Carapace being banned. This one I'm not too happy about, actually. I would think personally if they were to ban Rootbound Carapace, they just ban the red. They can ban the blue, or they can keep the blue and the yellow around. The reason being is because a lot of these Earth heroes can't block really well, which is crazy because you'd imagine like Earth is normally like symbolic towards like strength and hardiness and constitution, and they don't block very well. And Rootbound Carapace is a card that allows for these Earth heroes to at least be defensive while also still achieving their goal of decomposing. But the fact that they can't do this in here means they gain nothing from getting their rares. I think they get access to like Summer's Fall, so you get another Decompose card, but like this rare card was the reason why it was doing so well in Clash, is just strictly because it gave more access to you being able to decompose on your own end. Now, of course, in these young hero formats, in order for these Earth heroes, more specifically Verdance and Florian, to get online, they only need to get 4 cards in the Banished Zone instead of 8, like in their CC counterparts. But you still want to at least have something to do that with, right? Because like theoretically, you could run just 2 blue Decompose Rootbound Carapace, and even if you're blocking for 2, you're still decomposing. And so you're able to get online within just 2 of these Rootbound Carapace. I could see where it could be oppressive, but frankly, the ability of Florian and Verdant in these low health formats is not anywhere near as prevalent as it is in their CC formats. Seeds of Agony being banned, again, like I said, Chain is a hero that you can play in this format, but Seeds of Agony being banned is really, really good because it prevents a lot of the nonsense that Chain can do. You're not getting a lot of these big Riftbind turns, being able to do all these crazy stuff with like stacking a bunch of Seeds in Agony and then going with like Riftbind, Bounding Demagon, or Riftbind, Shrill of Skull Form. And not to mention the fact that, of course, you do not have Snapdragon Scalers either. So there's a lot of opportunity for Chain to kind of have to slow down his abilities. He's got no Rosetta Thorn, no Snapdragon Scalers, no Aether Ironweave, and also no Seeds of Agony or Deadwood Dirge. So I don't know if Chain's going to be as playable as we'd like him to be, but I'm sure somebody out there is going to break him because, let's be honest, the hero power of get a Soul Shackle, give your next Runeblade or Shadow action go again is insanely good. You're still able to do that, play things like a Read the Runes to create 3 rune chants instead of having to utilize Deadwood Dirge, and then come in with something like a Shrill of Skull form for 7 and what is that? 10 damage. Again, you also have access to Rune Gate cards. If you wanted to do Rune Gate stuff in Chain, you can do that there too. But of course, that's probably more Vincent's alley in that regard. Sigil of Solace being banned. Again, kind of preventing a lot of that big healing meta from happening. You don't want too much fatigue going on. So Sigil of Solace is essentially banned in that front. And then Sink Below also being banned. Again, another very, very prevalent 0 for 4 defense reaction, which, mind you, is the promo that they're giving away during this Project Blue event, but it's banned in the format. So I don't know what the whole concept is there, but it is interesting to see this one banned. Again, having a lot of these 0 for 4 defense reactions is really good to see banned, just because there is that heavy fatigue mode in which you don't have a lot of cards left in your deck. And more importantly, a lot of these cards that I've seen here, such as Fate Foreseen and Sink Below, and that's it, Fate Foreseen and Sink Below, those are cards that we see do really well in Enigma in Commoner because they're a very defensive deck overall. And if they lose out on 8 points of defense, they're not going to be able to protect their Spectral Shield as much. They're going to have to present a lot more in regards to these things. So Sink Below being banned, I like that the Fate Foreseen and Sink Below being banned. I like that. I think that's fine. I even think Sigil and CYB is fine. I don't know about Deadwood Dirge. I don't know if this is incredibly oppressive, but maybe I'm just a Runeblade enjoyer. Drone is good. Then, of course, let's just talk about the last two here. Cash In and Amulet of Ice being banned. Cash In, of course, being a rare card that allows you to draw 2 cards if you destroy 4 coppers, 2 silver, or 1 gold. Gold generation is still prevalent in these young budget hero formats, so being able to do nothing, pay 0 cost, destroy gold, draw 2 cards in a young hero format, very good. Victor would love this. All the new pirate heroes coming in would love this. There's just a lot of value for that, so it's good to know that the draw 2 cards was banned in that front. And then Amulet of Ice being banned too. Again, this is a great way for Icelander or even Oldhim to just kind of present these Ice Fuse cards and then say, hey, you also now need to discard a card from your hand to pay, or pay 2 resources to prevent that from happening. And it's an ice card, so it's 1 less card to fuse with these things as well. So I like that those are banned too, because it kind of prevents a lot of that there. But really, the ban list is pretty tight. I think a lot of it makes sense. Somersault being banned makes sense. Flare being banned makes sense. Belittle, Count Your Blessings, Bonds, Drone, Seeds, I think certainly makes sense. Although I don't know, without Snapdragon Scalers, it's certainly not as great. Rake makes sense to me as a Dromai player, but I don't know if it's going to be the best for everybody else. Plunder makes sense. A lot of these D-Reacts make sense. Cash In makes sense, and Amulet of Ice. I mean, a lot of these they seem to be a nice mix of get rid of these hyper aggressive cards and get rid of these hyper defensive cards. And in doing so, right, this being the current ban list. And of course, again, as the notes say, this is an alpha and is a work in progress. So this is not the official finalized ban list of Project Blue. This is just currently the ban list of Project Blue. So if you are looking to play something like this at your home with your friends, or even try it out at a casual locals scene, Project Blue is certainly something that I think is going to do really well overall. Again, it is a nice way to still have a very big budget format without having to worry about any of these other, high-powered Majestics or incredibly niche cards. I think the only thing that's still really relevant in this format is the fact that some of the cards from the Tolarian Community College IRA deck, things like Bittering Thorns, are right around $10 a piece. So it is still a little expensive if you're thinking that you only need 2 copies, but theoretically that's the most value you're going to need out of those there. But I wanted to take a quick look at some decks that I built on heroes that I believe are kind of wavering a little bit in the commoner format that seem to got a nice little boost with this current format. So of course, we obviously have to talk about Dromai. Dromai being my favorite hero in the entire game of Flesh and Blood. Pretty much a lot of this is straightforward. I made a lot of this into my Brawl deck. The only thing that we have to change really here, obviously we have no Rake the Embers, but we also now have to not run Snapdragon Scalers. So Snapdragon Scalers can't extend our lines when we're going with these really, really wide turns, which does kind of make things for to be a little bit difficult with cards like Lava Burst and Snatch, things like that. But I think overall, the deck does what it's supposed to do. In most cases, you want to play dragons, attack with dragons, and then finish with one of these guys or finish with one of these guys. But there's ways in which we kind of made it still fairly defensive in its own thematic way without needing to worry too much about the actual overall playstyle of the deck, in which we obviously have Billing Mirage, great card. We're not doing like a deep deck tech or anything here, but you can just kind of see, right? Billing Mirage allows us to make Ash Wings. We've got Drop of Dragon's Blood, really good if you can actually get it to play it for free, but even if you have to pitch 2 into it, you get 2 Ash for it, so peak. You then, of course, have Blaze Headlong. You've got Dunebreaker Centipede, in case your opponent's probably not running a lot of poppers unless they're a Guardian or a Brute. Dust Up for a great ender there. Again, it's a 0 cost, comes in for 4. We love to see it. All of our dragons here, we're running 2 Asvali, 2 Chromai, 2 Kryloria, 2 Mirigai, 1 Necria, 2 Uvia, and 2 Yenderai. We're then running 2 Rake Over the Coals, 2 Ravenous Rabble, 2 Sandcover Red, which is effectively just our D-React here. We've got a Scar for a Scar. We've got Snatch. We've got Springboard Somersault. If you are wondering how you're going to make your deck defensive in this format, Springboard Somersault is one you're going to want to look towards, because you put it in Arsenal, blocks for 2. If you're blocking from it from hand, it only blocks for 2, but it blocks for 4 when it's coming from the Arsenal, which is really, really good. But of course, it also is a yellow, so notably pitches for 2 resources, which sometimes is relevant in your game. Then we do have a blue Ember Moss Centipede, which is again really useful. Again, if it's not being used with Phantasm, Ember Moss Centipede might be good here. I'm thinking I might even get to the point where Zealous Belting might not be a terrible card to put in here. I do really only have this card that allows for that, so it's probably not anything I'm going to actually add. But overall, it's another red that I can start with if I really wanted to. If I wanted to put in things like more Ember Moss Centipede and then things like Enigma Chimera even, it's another way to like fill this with Phantasm cards as opposed to filling it with so many small go again cards. So another way for it to be kind of defensive and more Guardian-esque. And then of course we added a Findal's Fighting Spirit. I believe actually there should have been 2 in here. I don't know why there's only 1, but there should have been 2. And then we've got Thamai, Oasis Respite, Passing Mirage. So I'll probably get rid of like maybe the Null Rune Robe, just because I make Ash Wings, and so I don't need all this AB. But Oasis Respite, Passing Mirage, kind of the normal stuff. So this is the deck that we made for this. It looks fairly okay from what I'm seeing. I'm not exactly too worried about the concept there. Again, we've got the Glory Seeker for if turn 1 we get a whole bunch of dragons. We can just pitch all of them to Glory Seeker, draw a card, be able to play some stuff, and then we have Ash for the remainder of the game. And yeah, so I don't think this is too bad of a build. I kind of enjoy it a lot, but I haven't really gotten around to playing it at all. Let me also take this moment to, obviously, you know, you would think I went ahead and I made this deck in the open deck building format, but believe it or not, actually, this deck is able to be made in Fabrary. If you do go to Fabrary and you click Create, in the formats, Project Blue is a format that you can choose to make a deck from. So if that is something that you are looking to build, it is available there. I don't know that it's on Talishar yet. I don't actually believe it is. Yeah, currently PB is not available on Talishar yet. I don't know when that will happen, but at least we have the concept of this to take a look at in regards to making decks. And then also you can just play on Tabletop Simulator. You can play in person as somebody would. You don't need Talishar to play the game. You can play it many other ways too. So that is an option. And then I wanted to take a look at a deck that I think was struggling really hard in Commoner, Vincent. I believe Vincent was in a pretty odd spot as far as things were concerned. I'm not like fully finished with the deck yet. I'm still missing at least a few cards here, but Vincent was in a really weird spot because the only Runegate card she had access to was just Phantom Banshee and Phantom Wraith. And while Phantom Banshee and Phantom Wraith aren't terrible cards and present still quite a bit of damage, it's so much so that they don't actually present any of what Vincent does, which is allow for these on hurt cards to be more relevant in the format. For instance, Deathly Whale. Deathly Whale is probably the best card in Vincent, bar none, and I think every Vincent player can agree with me here. Deathly Whale is what allows you to continue to get those rune chants back and guarantee that you get this value off of it. But you couldn't play that in Commoner because it's a rare. But seeing Deathly Whale available in here is really, really good. I kind of went for more of a, I'm running Nebula Blade. I kind of went for more of a go tall build. I'm running Putrid Stirrings, a bunch of blues in the deck. And really a lot of these are just blue block 3s that are available to end, Vexing Malice can end a game if your opponent's only on AB1. You have Mauve Skies to go a little bit wider. You have a bunch of the stuff that you're going to see hit the banish zone. But notably, they didn't ban Malefic Incantation, which I think is an insanely good card in this format. So Malefic Incantation not getting a ban, really good. You do also have other generations such as Read the Rune Chants. Reduce to Rune Chant, a fantastically thematic D-React. This is a D-React that, again, I think this is why Rune Blades are going to do super well, is because Reduce to Rune Chant is just great. If you have a Rune Chant, this comes in, it's a 0/4 D-React. It's exactly what they did not, it's exactly what they banned in the format. And this is a 0/4 D-React that also makes you a Rune Chant, which is really good into Vincent here. Then, of course, again, we do also have Sigil of Suffering in case we want to do another defense reaction. This is kind of more of a go tall build than a go wide build, but we do have go wide capability with things like Mauvrin Skies, as well as Sutcliffe Suede Hides. These are also available and a way to kind of go about allowing me to do something in the lungs of like following it up with a Nebula Blade or something of the sort. But overall, I like that this deck seems a lot more consistent. And the hands look significantly better. I can go ahead and still set up on these turns. And even if it's just, make a thing here and then swing Nebula Blade, like that's still totally fine. It gets me in something in Arsenal and I can just wait that out. I can, of course, just, play this and then attack with the Deathly Delight and then pop my Sutcliffes with my 1 float. And then, I don't know, do something else. I don't actually have enough resources with this hand, but you get the point. It's a lot more thematic to play this hero in Project Blue than it is in Commoner. And so that's kind of what I enjoy a lot more about it, is that you're kind of able to see that power of it. The reason why Vincent's ability exists in being able to make an unpreventable rune chant, you pay 1 and then you have a Phantom Banshee come in. It doesn't really do anything, right? Your opponent, you've hit your opponent for damage, but it doesn't really do anything because there's no on-hit damage for Phantom Wraith or Phantom Banshee. There is, on the other hand, an on-hit for Deathly Whale, in which if both of you have taken damage, 1 damage from an unpreventable rune chant and 1 life loss because you pay 1 life whenever you're playing in Shadow non-attack action, then when this chain link closes, you'll get 2 rune chants from Deathly Whale, which sets you up for your next rune chant or rune gate card that's coming out of your banish zone. So that is kind of my whole concept there for this, and I'm really, really curious. I know we've talked like nearly 40 minutes about this thing, but I wanted to make sure to get everybody's kind of thoughts and ideas on this. I do think that if it ends up being on Talishar, awesome, we can play it on Talishar. But if anybody is looking to jam games on Project Blue, if anybody's looking to do any of that there, please feel free to go ahead and let me know in the comments down below. I'd be more than happy to collab. I'm going to be collabing with some other content creators in regards to playing some games of this and seeing how it feels. I know a lot of people still have some feels bad situations in regards to young hero formats, but I do believe that something as intense as a ban list like this, I do believe is enough for there to still be that theme of your hero without making it super oppressive. They've obviously toned down a lot of the fatigue options. They've toned down a lot of the aggro options, such as Aether Flare, Ball Lightning, Belittle, Seeds, Rake. They've toned down a lot of those, and they've allowed you to kind of have a very base level of this. So very, very excited to see where this format comes from and see how it evolves over time. As I had said, it's currently in alpha, and only folks from New Zealand are able to actually have input in regards to the format at this time. But if it does end up coming into the beta phase and the rest of the world is able to take a look, I look forward to being one of the front runners of assisting in regards to making this format super awesome, because I enjoy any format that allows me to play at a budget level and still thematically enjoy the game that I love, Flesh and Blood. So let me know down in the comments what you guys think about this new format, Project Blue. And while you're down there, make sure to go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and then continue to have fun in the Flesh and Blood. And I'll see all of you beautiful Ashwings in our next video.